I'm not against science, but the idea that science explains everything is itself a religion, and really kind of the dumbest religion ever concocted.
Most of you know Charlie Sheen, the Hollywood wildcard made famous by the TV series 2.5 Men and an infamously chaotic lifestyle marked by drugs, scandals, and public meltdowns. Chaos was his brand. But in recent years, Sheen has hinted at a quiet spiritual reckoning, speaking more openly about God, meaning, and faith, things you wouldn't associate with the old Charlie Sheen persona. Taken together, his words suggest something deeper is shifting beneath the surface. Watch the first clip and make up your mind yourself. Let's take a look.
Times, the timing of certain events that made you think there was a supernatural quality here. I mean, how would you identify? Is that God? Like, what is that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I got asked this with Bill Maher just last
week.
Bill
Maher asked you about God?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Really? What world is this? What is happening?
I don't know.
Bill Maher is asking you about God. We are in a brand new age.
Yeah, no, and I wasn't happy with my answer.
All right. Well, now you have a chance to revise.
I have a chance to. Yeah, there's most days I don't know what else to call it. Yeah, and that's what I should have said in that moment. Most days I don't have a better word or anything else for it. It is exactly that, and just whatever my interpretation of that is, you know. But it just kind of caught me off guard, and I should have just leaned right into it, and I did a little bit of a tap dance, you know.
Well, it's kind of weird. We're, about the same age, didn't grow up in a world where people talked about God at all.
Right.
Did you? No.
Well, my dad, devout Catholic growing up, and rather than that, he always, let us know that was his personal journey, and we were welcome to climb on board, but it wasn't anything that he was going to mandate,
Yeah.
And so we did have exposure to it in our house our entire life.
Really?
Yeah. And it never.
What did you think?
I didn't. I saw some. I saw a lot of goodness with it. I saw other stuff I didn't want to align with.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's I was talking to Lexi just yesterday. Some days I'm all in.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, then sure. Well, can I describe it better? Do I have a better prediction?
Yeah.
No. And there's other days I'm like, nah, I don't know. So I'm not, people will read the book and, there's not a chance they say, oh, that guy's an atheist.
Right.
But there is a chance they go, oh, he's curious. He hasn't fully figured it out or
so you're God curious, you would say.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And I don't think that's, and that's not me just wanting to say that in your presence. That's me having time to.
In my presence.
Well, because, right? Just to
I don't know. I mean, I'm hardly an authority on the subject.
No, when I understand the what it means to you.
I mean, it's come to me now. Yeah. I mean, again, things are changing so fast, and I don't have the answers to most questions, but I definitely have become convinced that God's real for sure.
Yeah, no, and that's inspiring to see that level of acceptance.
Well, don't you feel it, kind of?
I do, but there's a part of me that it just still wants to be a science snob.
I get it.
Yeah.
One genuinely interesting aspect of Charlie's explanation is his honesty about the back and forth of belief. He admits that there are days when he's fully in, convinced, open, almost certain, and then other days when doubt creeps in and he starts questioning whether any of this is actually true. That tension is real, and frankly, it's very human. Interestingly, the inner struggle is something G.K. Chesterton explained remarkably well. He said that just as we open our mouths to take in food, chew it, digest it, and allow it to give energy to the body, in the same way we open our minds to truth so that it can give energy to the spirit. Truth isn't meant to be merely tasted and analyzed forever. It's meant to be received, observed, and lived. That's why curiosity about God, while good and even necessary at the beginning, cannot be a permanent resting place. At some point, endless chewing without swallowing leaves you spiritually malnourished. Informed, perhaps, but never transformed. Faith eventually requires a decision, a leap, A moment where we stop circling the question, stop hedging our bets, and finally have the courage to say, God is true. That naturally brings us to the next moment in the conversation. In the final part of the clip, Charlie Sheen admits that he's often tempted to play it safe, to lean on science and hold back from fully accepting the claims of the Christian faith. But Tucker shuts that down almost immediately with a sharp, no-nonsense response. Let's listen in.
Well, you kind of can't. And then you realize that actually the real religious nuts are the science snobs.
Interesting.
Who are sort of desperately backfilling against the evidence. Like, well, what does that mean? Well, shut up. They're just like so desperate to cling to something that is just absurd. I'm not saying that the physical world can't be measured in a lab. Of course it can.
Right.
And I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful that, for its byproducts like, I don't know, automobiles and penicillin. But I'm not against science. But the idea that science explains everything is itself a religion. And really kind of the dumbest religion ever concocted.
Interesting.
And the people who espouse it know that it's dumb. And that's why they're so brittle and so given to lecturing you about it. There's no Mormon missionary who's ever been judgier or more persistent than Tony Fauci. Trust the science.
Wow.
Does any Christian ever say that? Trust the religion.
Not that I've ever
Or I'll
met.
hurt you.
Yeah.
I mean, the science religious wackos believe in conversion by the sword. Like, do what we say or we'll hurt you.
Right.
That's not a religion I want to be anywhere near.
Me neither.
No, that's bad.
Doesn't sound loving. Doesn't sound forging.
No, it sounds dangerous, actually.
It does.
Sounds kind of like Al-Qaeda a little bit. So I just think, and it's sad because who acts like that? Only people who know they're wrong act like that.
Interesting. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's actually a line in the book that I don't know where I read this or heard this, but somebody smarter than me described science as an ongoing historical series of corrected mistakes.
Exactly.
How about that?
Yes. Yeah, it's just kind of institutional. It's a method for satisfying curiosity and understanding the physical world. And I'm totally for that, completely for that. But at its heart is skepticism and an acknowledgement that you don't know the answers to the most obvious questions. And so keep trying to find the answers.
Sure.
I'm 100% in favor of all of that, of course. But what it's become is the medieval church. Brittle, rigid, punitive, stupid, laughable. And the second you describe it with no emotion, any normal person's like, well, that's insane. I don't want to be part of that.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. But I'm not, I'm not going to try to solve the unsolvable.
Right.
And I'm fine being completely mystified by it.
Well, that's the beginning of wisdom.
You know what I'm saying?
To admit you're mystified. Right.
Yeah.
Because you're admitting you're not all knowing.
No.
As Tucker explains, it's deeply misguided, even naughty as he puts it, to conclude that science is the only valid source of knowledge. Science is powerful, indispensable even, but the moment we treat it as the sole pathway to truth, we turn it into something it was never meant to be. Science answers many questions, but not all questions, especially not questions of meaning, morality, or purpose. He goes on to argue that many people today are effectively promoting this idea as a new kind of religion, which is scientism, where anything that cannot be measured, tested, or replicated is automatically dismissed as irrelevant or unreal. Now, the irony is obvious. This mindset often ends up being far more rigid and dogmatic than the religious faith it so confidently ridicules. That's why Tucker describes it as the worst form of religion, one that refuses to admit its own limitations while claiming total authority over every question of reality. This is precisely where the Catholic perspective becomes crucial. In the next clip, Bishop Barron explains why science and religion are not enemies, but are in fact complementary, exactly as the Catholic faith has always taught. Let's listen in.
Science led to faith. It was not repugnant to faith. I think of this, go back to my early years. Where did I first learn science? And then philosophy, which I came to love. It became the central study of my young, adulthood, and I got my degree in philosophy. Where did I learn all that? At Catholic schools, at Catholic University in Washington, at the Institut Catholique in Paris. The Catholic faith, at its best, has never stood opposed to reason. No, it loves and embraces the sciences, loves and embraces philosophy, loves and embraces all expressions of rationality. Where did I first study the great novelists and the poets, those who explore the objective intelligibilities within human experience, within the human mind? I learned all that in Catholic schools. Right. You know, very early on in the tradition, there was a fellow named Tertullian, church father, great figure in many ways. But Tertullian said something, and he expressed an attitude that the church found repugnant. Tertullian said, "What has Athens to do with Jerusalem?" And what he meant was, what do the speculations of the philosophers of Athens have to do with the revelation given to the Jews? Well, the church repudiated that. The church at its best from the earliest days. Think of Paul himself all the way through Thomas Aquinas and up to the present day. The church at its best had said, no, Athens and Jerusalem belong together. The questing mind of Athens should not be put to rest. No, on the contrary. Allow all of that rich intellectual energy to express itself as fully as possible because it's always seeking some form of logos and therefore ultimately is seeking the source of that objective intelligibility. It's seeking the source of all of that patterned intelligibility in the great intelligence of God. Now, that's the Catholic tradition. Faith and reason. John Paul II is one of his last encyclicals called Fides et Ratio, that wonderful et, and. See, the Magi believed in reason, to be sure, and faith. Their reason brought them to faith. I'll close with this. These twin groups, you might say, around Christmas. The shepherds. Well, shepherds were very ordinary people. In fact, shepherds were kind of seen as lowlifes. Their testimony wouldn't have been accepted in court. They weren't taken seriously. The angel appeared, though, to the shepherds. Good. The simplest people come to Christ. And maybe they're the first ones really to hear the message. That's true. But now think of the Magi. Now we're the other extreme from the shepherds. Now we're not dealing with just the sort of common, ordinary people. We're dealing with the cultural elite. We're dealing with the philosophers and scientists in one of the most advanced cultures of that time. Christ has come to them too. And in fact, their very work leads them to Christ. You know, faith needs science to keep it from becoming superstitious. There's a danger of that. You know, if you just block out reason, then faith can become superstitious. But the sciences need faith so they don't become self-contained and self-referential. Faith and reason. And a great place to look to find this coming together is in the journey of the...
Building on what Bishop Barron highlights, it's worth noting that for decades, critics of the Catholic Church have pushed the idea that religion, especially Christianity, is somehow at war with science. It's an old worn-out narrative, and almost on cue, they reach for the Galileo affair as if that single episode settles the entire debate. Yet, as Bishop Barron consistently reminds us, the Church has always taught the exact opposite. Catholic teaching holds that faith and reason are not competitors, but collaborators, two wings, as St. John Paul II famously put it, on which the human spirit rises toward the contemplation of truth. When rightly understood, they don't cancel each other out, they strengthen and elevate one another. So don't fall for the claim that the Catholic faith is anti-science. Nothing could be further from reality. In fact, many of the foundations of modern science were laid by Catholics who believed that studying the natural world was not a rejection of God, but a way of honoring the Creator himself. And ironically, this is exactly what Galileo himself had to say about the relationship between science and religion. He said, "Science explains how the heaven goes. Religion explains how to go to heaven." I hope this video is helpful. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. God bless you.